he's the worst at loading the dishwasher. It's the stupidest thing, but it drives me nuts. It's like you got a plate down here and then a mug next to it, and like a pan up
Oh,
top. But I'm just like, what is this? You can fit 5 things in here by the way that you have constructed this. For someone who's so, OCD, this is absurd.
thank you so much for listening to Divorce Party. We really appreciate it. If you like this podcast, we'd love it if you could leave us 5 stars on Spotify podcasts or Apple Podcasts. And if you want to see our lovely faces, we do have a YouTube channel where you can watch the episodes, and be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Divorce Party Podcast. Welcome to Divorce Party. I'm Monica Casey here with Tom Arnold. Our guest today is Devon Reilly. She is a friend of mine for over a decade, and she's an actress, and she has a great divorce story. Please welcome to the show, Devon Reilly. Well, our guest today is also a fellow Iowan.
Okay.
Here's Devon. I'm going to let her in. You'll get a kick out of Devon. Oh, hey, girl.
Oh my gosh, how are you?
Good. Good to see your face.
You too. You look exactly the same.
So do you.
Tom, you look exactly the same too.
No, I was gonna say you guys look like sisters.
Oh, you
I'm
stick
not
together.
sure who I'm talking to.
We could be.
Yes, absolutely. Well, nice to virtually meet you, Tom.
Nice to meet you too.
Another fellow Iowan.
Yes, yes. And Tom, am I correct? Did you grow up in Ottumwa?
Yes, I did.
My mom
Yes,
grew up in Ottumwa.
Really?
Yes.
How old is your mom?
Well, she's much older than you. She would have been 78. So she grew up there. We actually still have our family farm there. It's been there for about 160 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so Ottumwa was a very special place to me. I spent a lot of time there growing up. I grew up in Des Moines,
The big city.
the big city, exactly,
Yeah.
the capital.
Yeah. You got an airport. They have an airport in Des Moines.
They got an airport with about 2 terminals.
What kind of stuff? What kind of stuff did you girls do together? Like, give me an example. Did you?
Well, so Tom, I met Devon. I used to go to Sushi Roku
Yeah, you and
On-
George used to come in there all the
on
time.
3rd Street.
Mhm,
And Devon's ex
mhm.
used to wait on us a lot. And then Devon worked there too. And then I met Devon, and obviously I was like, I love this girl. We need to
Mhm.
become friends.
Well,
And
Monica said that her pseudonym she would give people when she used to go out was Devon. She would
yes.
the name she used.
So back in my single days, whenever I would go out to bars with my girlfriends, we always came up with fake names.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for years, I don't know why, my fake name was Devon. And then I met a real Devon and was like, well, we have to be friends.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Devon. Think back in the day. It's Monica and George. What were they like as a couple?
They had so much fun together.
Mhm.
I mean, they would come in, they would have a bunch of sushi, and have some drinks, and they were just super fun. You could tell that they really enjoyed each other's company.
Yeah.
And they were always out doing stuff. Whether it was going to the casino or, going on this trip or that trip, like they spent a lot of time together. And they had so much fun together. And then when the 4 of us kind of started hanging out, there was such a genuine love and affection there. They were very affectionate together and really a great couple. I mean, it was genuine and fun. I would say it was
Well, and I feel like Devon and I would obviously have so much fun, separate, our own thing.
Yeah.
But wait, here's what's so great though. So Devon and her ex get engaged
Mhm.
before I did, right? I feel like you
But
guys
you guys had been together a long time at that
we've been
point.
together for like years and years, like 6, 7
Yeah.
years. But you are dating for what? About 3 years. You get engaged.
Yep. Yeah, Pete and I got engaged. Yeah, when I say after 3 or 4 years of
Yeah.
dating.
Do you feel like, because going back to that time, we were in that era where, like, did you kind of feel some pressure, like this is just what we
100%.
do?
100%. you know, and Tom, you probably can, I mean, that Midwest thing, you know, it's kind of like you see, okay, I grow up, I go to school, I do this, I get married, then I have kids, and you know, here I was in my early 30s, and you know, obviously my career wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was frustrated with that. And here's this great guy, we're really good friends, and he proposed, and I loved him dearly. I still think he's an amazing man. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I should do next. Uh, even though there was a lot I just hadn't figured out about for myself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I did feel that kind of pressure of this is what my next step should be
Yeah.
in life.
Where did you go to school, Devin?
I
Where
went
did
to
you
school in Santa Barbara.
go? Uh-huh.
So I graduated, you know, in Iowa, and right after that I left. I went up to Santa Barbara, went there for a couple years, and then a girl I was living with was like, "Hey, I'm going to move down to LA." My goal was to always get to LA. I always, you know, I had the acting bug since I was like, you know, 8 years old, doing community playhouse plays and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I said, sure, and dropped out of school and moved to LA, and I was, you know, 20 years old at that time, and the rest
What
is
high school? What high school did you go to in
I
Des
went to
Moines?
Roosevelt High School.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah.
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 It was a
That's not
great
too fancy.
Yeah, it was a public
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
Back then, you know, this was the early 90s, you know, it was a really great school. And
Mhm.
oddly enough, you know, they came to shoot Bridges in Madison County there, and they were holding auditions for the brother and sister when they were young, you know, like I think they were 12 or 15 in the movie or something.
Mhm.
And they were holding it at my high school, and I went and I waited in line
Mhm.
for like 6 hours to try to get into audition. And by the time I finally got in the school, they shut the auditions down. And I was like, oh man, you know, I didn't even get in there. But then like the next day I was getting my hair done, and the lady who was doing my hair was somehow doing something on the film, hair related. And she said, hey, do you want to be a stand-in in the movie for the kids? And I said, sure. I didn't really even know what that was. But I got to go out there and be on set for like 3 days, watch Clint Eastwood work.
Mhm.
And I was just, you know, thought it was so amazing. And, you know, you finally see, oh my God, it takes an entire day to shoot a 2-minute scene, you know, and really, so
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, this is, you know,
You're like, I love it. I'm in.
I'm in. So,
I
and
want to wait around all day to work for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, Clint offered to be the role of the son.
No
Uh,
kidding.
yeah, but I was like, oh, I don't know. It's how long does that take or whatever. I
How
regret
long
it.
does that
I should
take?
I should have done it. I should have done it. But now that I think back
Probably.
about it, because I could have
Probably
filmed.
should have done it. Oh
Yeah.
my
How
gosh.
funny
Well,
though.
what I think is so interesting about your path to getting married is you thought it would be a good idea to have
Yes.
me marry you at your
Yes.
wedding.
Well, because I got married before you, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, and Monica did an amazing job as our officiant. She
Oh,
did. I mean,
thank
obviously,
you.
we know how funny Monica is, so
Uh,
she did a great mix of,
Hilarious.
you know, sentiment
Was
and
she a Unitarian minister? Because I am also a Unitarian minister.
I'm Universal Life Church. Yeah.
Universal Life Church. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought it was only fitting to be like, well, hey, then you have to marry George and I.
which you which was very. I mean, you had a beautiful wedding at that vineyard.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, but you know, obviously those two didn't work out.
Yeah, for some reason we canceled each other out. Both marriages did not make it.
Yeah.
I was
But
just glad, honestly, at the end of the day, they both didn't, so we were equal in that.
oh,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Let me ask this: your ex-husband. Tell me
Yes.
about what did he do? Where's he from? Uh, uh, yeah. What's the
So
story?
he was from Minnesota, so super nice guy.
Yeah.
He was also a struggling actor,
Mhm.
um, and really funny, really nice guy. And he was probably one of the nicest guys I'd ever met
Mhm.
at that point, up to that point in my life. You know, I didn't have the best track record with men at that point.
So you're like,
And
I'm gonna pivot.
Yeah. I also didn't have the best opinion, coming from a divorced family and having a father who, by the way, I adored, but was not the most faithful of men. I didn't have the best opinions of men being committed and monogamous. So I dated men a lot like that before I met my ex-husband. And when I met him, I was like, oh gosh, there really are really good guys out there and guys that you can trust 100% and really believe that they're not going to do anything to hurt you, which I think was obviously a big reason why I did marry him. Um, and he, you know, we had a lot of fun together and we were really best friends. Genuinely, and still to this day care so much about him. Um, but I think at the end of the day, I probably went into that really wanting to make him happy more than myself, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
how long did it last?
it was quick, Tom. I want to say about a year into our marriage, I was like, there's something not right here. We had some issues, which, I don't need to go into the specifics of them, but things we couldn't really work through. And then we started
Give me
therapy.
one. Give me one issue. Give me just one issue that people
One
could
you can
relate to.
share.
One
Yeah,
that I
what
can
people could
share.
relate to.
Okay, like kids. He was really ready to
That's big.
That's a big one.
to
Yeah.
have kids and wanted to raise them in Minnesota. Um, and as much as I love Minnesota, that was not what I was ready for. So that was there was
And
definitely a
that's like a big sort of maybe
yeah,
deal breaker that should have been
Huge.
dealt with
yeah.
before you get married.
So, and I think at first, before we got married, I was like, yeah, of course I want to have kids. And then we got in and things were just missing in the relationship. And I was like, no, I don't know if I'm definitely not ready now. And I don't want to go, I don't want to move to Minnesota. And, so anyway, we started couples therapy, I want to say about a year into our marriage. Um, and we had a wonderful therapist who spotted some pretty big issues right off the bat and really explored into those. And honestly, if it wasn't for couples therapy, I don't know if I would have had the strength to say a lot of the stuff that needed to be said. And we essentially, that's where we ended our marriage was in therapy. Um, and it was very respectful and kind and loving. I remember looking up at the day we decided to end the marriage. I looked up at our therapist and his eyes were welling up with tears. And he was
Aw.
like, I've never seen a couple break up like this and do it so lovingly and respectful. And it was a real testament to him and I and the amount of love we did have for each other. And I was really proud of us that we were able to do it like that,
What does his family, where in Minnesota is he from?
So he's from St. Paul.
Okay, well that's the big thing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
lived in Minneapolis for 5 years in the 80s. It's a good place. Is his
great.
family back there? Is that the deal?
Yes, they're all back there.
And
And
is
he
he
was
with
like,
I feel like
super,
that's a trend with a lot of men. Like, you're not my first friend
yeah,
who's been married to someone who kind of all along their ulterior motive is to get the wife out of LA back to where they grew up, have
yeah.
all their roots and their kids and family there. And I get it, but
Mhm.
it's I don't know, it's just
It
kind
it's
of
does.
a
It
big
happens a
thing.
lot.
It's a
Mhm.
big thing. It's a big change. Especially since you had this thing in common. You're both trying to, uh, you know, make it in the business, and
Yeah.
then it's kind of a surrender. Like,
Yes.
here's what I want to do. I want to go back to fucking
Yeah. And I
Minnesota.
think a lot of partners, and I'm just generalizing, I think a lot of men think like, well, once we get married, she'll want to have kids
Mhm.
and it'll be easy for me to just, be like, look at all the help we're going to have. We're going to have all this family and look at what kind of a house we can get for the money. And, I don't know, I just kind of think it's not fair.
Well, it's all
Mhm.
those are all really valid points, and I have three older brothers and a younger sister, and they all have kids, and none of them live where their families are from. And I really saw, with their kids, there was a reason why people go live near their family when they have kids,
Yeah,
'cause it is
for
so
kids.
much
Yeah,
help.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it makes total sense.
yeah.
So I got why he wanted to. That was his dream, and it wasn't mine. And
Uh,
I think he was ready to give in and give up and go home.
yeah.
And I just, at that point, I was not. And he, to be fair to him, he really didn't have a shot against that with me. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I just
Yeah.
wasn't prepared to do that.
Yeah. Now you say you love him, which I believe, but were
Yeah.
you in love with him? Were you like, this is, were you, do you think you were desperately in love with the guy?
I don't know if desperate is the right word, Tom. I know, I, I was, we were, I loved him dearly
Mhm.
and, care about him, but I do think it was a little bit more of that companionship
Mhm.
type of love, and friendship, which
Mhm.
is a huge part of,
Yeah.
relationship.
Well, and
Yes.
you keep
Um,
saying he was more like a best friend, which
Yeah.
we feel
That's
like
right.
we hear all the time people,
yeah,
say they want to marry their best friend. So you probably thought, well, then this is what I should do.
100%. And I remember having a conversation like that with one of my brothers, and before we got married, and I was like, well, everything else will come, everything else will develop, and
Is that what he said?
yeah, yeah, and it's like, those things they'll move on, they'll change, and and I was like, will they?
Yeah.
Okay. um,
So interesting what a brother's advice would be. Cause yeah, I don't.
Well, I really wanted it to. I wanted it to work with him,
Yeah.
because he's such a wonderful person. And
Yeah.
for times where I was like, what's wrong with me?
Mhm.
Why isn't this enough for me? You know what
Right.
I mean? And I really beat myself up about it for a long, long
You
time.
did. I mean,
Uh,
as your friend,
yeah,
I know we had many conversations about both our relationships, and I can say it was torture for you.
it was
I
really
know
hard
you,
because nobody had done
nobody
anything.
did anything wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's even harder. You're like, God, I hope he would cheat on me so I could just be like, great, I'm out
And
of
you'd be
here.
like, you asshole, I'm out,
Yeah,
and
like, thank
it was
you.
like,
What was it that made it not enough? What was missing was it specific things or just
I
big
think,
picture stuff?
I mean, I'm going to kind of answer what I think for you, but I just think there wasn't that sort of chemistry
yeah.
that maybe would ignite that passion or whatever that sometimes, just as humans, we kind of want or need in a relationship.
I mean, I think that's fair. I definitely am. I mean, I've changed a lot, at this point in my life, but especially at then, I was kind of an all or nothing person. And it was like, if I don't feel all of this, then, it's not right. You know what I mean? And like I said, I also had a lot of personal growing up I needed to do at that point, and I wasn't the best at vocalizing what was going on with me entirely.
Well, it's hard too, because you don't, I feel like, I don't know, as women or whatever, like we feel bad hurting the other person's feeling.
100%. Yeah.
And for a woman to be the one that's like, oh, I'm kind of out, then you're like, oh my God, they're going to feel like this rejection. And, you know,
Which is the last thing I wanted him to feel. I didn't want him to feel that it was anything he'd done. But I do think, as we probably all have experienced, there are different types of love,
yeah,
Hmm.
and this was a different type of love that I didn't see sustaining the rest of our lives for myself. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? There was big pieces
Yeah.
missing. Um, and they were missing, which in turn meant he was missing things. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So we both
Hmm.
really weren't getting what we wanted.
yeah.
Hmm.
And essentially you're like doing him a favor too. Like you want kids, you want to do these things. I'm freeing you to go and do that.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
because
was there So you're going to therapy, couples therapy, because you're trying everything. And then
Mhm.
was there a session of couples therapy where you're like, okay, that's it. It's not, you know, let's move out of this, before he was crying in that one scene you were talking about. Was that a
Yeah,
therapy?
it was, we've been going pretty regularly for about a year, I would say. And then um it became pretty clear, like that's the answer of what needs to happen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we made to make the decision to end the marriage. And I would say it was about a year after going to therapy, and I don't know if I would have had the strength to actually come
Mhm.
out and say those words if we weren't in that therapy session and we had that wonderful therapist be able to kind of guide us through that. But yeah, I knew finally at one point, like
Mhm.
this, what's missing is not going to change. And now it's becoming unfair to both of us to continue to.
And how long after that, after you came to the realization, did you actually get divorced? I mean, was it lingering where you going back home together, doing this thing and kind of back and forth, or was it pretty straightforward?
It
And
was it was pretty straightforward. I want to say after that session, I moved out. I want to say probably a week within after that. I moved in with my sister. And we had a dog together, so we were kind of sharing the dog, and essentially we were trying to remain friends.
Mhm.
And which worked for a little while, and then it became a little too difficult, and we really
Yeah.
had to kind of cut that cord. Um, and then I was just trying to kind of figure myself out. I went to Africa and volunteered in an orphanage for 6 weeks and was just like trying to do things that I don't.
Almost probably died when you got sick there.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was, I was having my like eat, pray, love moment, after all
Mhm.
that. And and but yeah, it moved pretty quick. I would say the divorce was finalized. Um, Maybe a year and a half later, when none of us got attorneys, there was no money to split up, there was no equity.
Mhm.
Really, it was really pretty simple. There was no kids, obviously. So we were lucky, I guess, in that sense.
Mhm.
There was, not a lot of bickering and well,
Did
I
you
looked
hook up at all after that therapy session? Did you hook up a couple times for old times?
no,
Okay. Did he
no.
want to? Did he request that?
Did he request?
He sent me a handwritten note. This is what I'm
Yeah.
requesting.
Yeah.
No.
Please
Uh,
check the box, yes or no.
You know what? No, it didn't. Like I said, it was, I guess, it was a pretty clean break. And
How did you do? I know you moved in with your sister, and thank God your sister lived so
yeah.
close in LA. So you had like a landing pad, but like essentially you were like in her living room, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, she had a one bedroom. It was tiny, it was right up there, like on Sunset.
Holloway, right?
Yeah, no, she was, yeah, kind of that behind that digital cafe place,
Yeah, off
right
Sunset.
across almost like where the old Sunset Tower Records used to be.
Yeah.
And she was out partying a lot, so because she worked late, so I mainly slept in the bedroom and she slept on the couch because I had to get up early to
Awesome.
go to work. Yeah. But yeah, I stayed with her, which was great.
Like,
For a year at least.
so tell us a little bit about like how, you know, how did you like move through that first 6 months? Like, how did you self-care or not self-care?
Well, I continued with that therapist on my own.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, I just felt so bad about the whole thing, and I just,
Well, listen, the divorce it's never just the divorce. Like, I'm sure you learned in therapy you had other issues stemming from mom, dad, growing up that you kind of at this like fork in the road in your life, you're like, I gotta kind of work through some of this shit if I'm gonna get to the other side and not just repeat the
How did
same.
his family take it? How did his family?
oof, yeah, that was
He
not
seems
very,
like a guy that's very close to his mom.
very, very,
Yeah.
very intuitive
Yeah.
to
Well,
me.
he wept in front of you. I mean, that's a tell.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted to
Yeah.
move back to her, you know, wanted to
Yeah,
be
he
alone.
was a very feel, emotional guy, and very open about his feelings.
Mm,
But yes, he and his mother were very, very close. And she was not happy with me.
mm,
And rightfully so. She was very protective of her son,
mm.
and which I totally understood. But yeah, it was not she was not pleased at all. I
Yeah,
guess.
so you don't have any relationship with his family anymore. I
No,
noticed a
I
lot of
mean
people.
his sister, his family's they're all lovely people.
No,
And
of
his
course.
sister, she still, we're Facebook friends and we comment on each other's
Mm,
um posts and stuff like that. And her kids, that I knew when when they were born, now are like teenagers, and it's always lovely to see that. And she's always been wonderful and sweet.
So she didn't block you.
She
mm.
didn't, which,
Nice.
God bless her. But because we've also tried to kind of stay in each other's lives over the years. So, you know, they've been pretty good. But yeah, his mom was not,
Wait, what happened with custody of the dog? Did you finally get full custody?
so we went back and forth with the dog. It was like 1 week he'd have him, 1 week I'd have him. And then he got another dog, which,
Good.
made a big difference. And then he ended up moving back to Minnesota.
He
And
did.
he did, yeah, years. I want to say it was like 2020.
COVID.
Hmm.
He moved back to Minnesota, and I mean, it was obvious he wasn't going to take,
Yeah.
Venkman with him. So, I mean, that dog gets cold in 60-degree weather. There's no way that dog could go in Minnesota. So that was just, there was no arguing really at that point. So,
Yeah.
um,
So the
but
dog stayed with you?
the dog's still with me.
Yeah.
Which I felt bad for him because obviously he loved the dog so much and he misses the dog terribly, but there was no way he was going to move to Minnesota.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's a good workout thing because, when you have stuff between, worst case scenario, you have kids between
yeah,
you, that you still have to freaking deal with. Not the kids, but the ex. Uh,
yeah,
but you have this dog and you're doing it every other week. That's still kind of dangling. You're still kind of in a relationship with
yeah,
the person. The people that have been like, we had no dog, no kids. It was just over, and I went over here, and then he went over here. But but I guess it teaches you how to be a decent person too. If you're like, I know we're getting married. I know he's heard about it. I know he's, uh, but we're gonna do this thing like big boys and big girls with the dog. We're gonna do this right,
yeah.
and it's great he got another dog. And so, people go to court about their freaking dogs.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for
They
sure.
For
get
sure,
Yeah.
their hands
especially in
on.
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was always, like I said before, I was always really proud of us in how we, despite all the hurt feelings and the things that, were really tough, obviously, we always did try to be respectful of each other and their feelings. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I mean, there
Yeah.
were times where we argued and bickered and I'd
Yeah.
be pissed off at him and he was pissed off at me and all that. But I would say for the most part, we kept it, pretty friendly and civil.
One of
Yeah.
Which,
the things I think that's awesome is that you did do couples therapy, because a lot of people don't even try that, and
yeah,
that it helped you, realize whatever you needed to realize and do it there. Whereas knowing you as a friend, I think if you hadn't done that, you might have just let everything just come to a boiling point and it wouldn't have ended in a
yes,
nice.
absolutely. Or it would have ended in a really bad way.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Like
mean?
literally like
So,
burning the house down. Yeah.
yeah. So, I, like I said, I really, I wanted it to work in the beginning there. I really wanted it to work. So I was committed to the counseling, and there was a lot of times where I just thought it was my fault, like what was wrong with me? Why isn't this enough for me? Why can't I just be happy with all this, and stop, you know, wanting more or thinking about more or whatever. And the therapy was obviously the best thing we could have done. Uh, and then to stick with it afterwards was an enormous help because, I mean, you guys both know the life change of, being with someone for 7 years and sharing a home and, sharing kids or a dog or whatever. It's hard, when you've got to, all of a sudden that changes and you're now, living on your sister's couch or whatever
Yeah.
and trying to figure out where to put all your stuff and where do I go next? And
Well, and
You
especially
still have
too.
your wedding pictures from your wedding with Monica. Do you still have pictures of that?
gosh, I'm sure I do
Probably
somewhere.
somewhere in storage.
I,
I'll send you one of Devon from my wedding.
yeah,
Okay.
You can
I'm
see.
sure I
You can see
do.
how young and fresh we were.
I know we're just babies back
Just
then.
babies. But
Mm.
I know what you mean about that, like almost like I can't think of another term, but like culture shock when
Yeah,
the day you do move and that first week in a new place that's not yours, and you're like, what is my life right now? Like,
yeah,
how did I get here? And fuck, I have to start over. Like, I thought I'd be like coasting by now or like
right.
living my best life.
And at that age, you think, at that age, at that time, I was 36,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh my God, I'm 36. I'm so old. How can I, how can
Yeah.
I do this now? And,
Yeah, I'm
and
a fool.
yeah, I was like, oh my God, who's gonna want to date me at 36?
Totally. That's exactly what you
Like,
think.
I
Wait,
think you're so old.
I mean, obviously, did you ever think you were going to get married again?
I mean, I'm definitely a romantic. I love love. I mean, I didn't know if I'd get married again, but I knew I would probably fall in love again, or at least I hoped I would.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember when I walked out of that therapy session, when we decided to end the marriage, we're both just sobbing, and he goes in his car and I go in mine, and I called my sister and I was like, it's over, and told her what happened. And I'm like, oh, this is so hard. And she's like, Devon, this is the hardest day you're going to have. You know what I mean? You did it. This was the hardest thing to come out and say that. And, to make the decision you did, it's the hardest day. And from here on, it will get better. And she, she was right. Now it wasn't, not that it wasn't hard after that, but that was the hardest day. When you have to make that decision, you guys have to tell each other, and you just have to do the best you can after that. That's when I decided, okay, I'm going to just work on myself and focus on getting myself into the best place I can possibly be. And if something happens later in life with somebody else, great. But I think you kind of get to that
Yeah.
place where you're like, when you get right out of it, the last thing you're thinking about is
Yeah.
meet somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
You
some
know?
people do think that they need to meet somebody else right
Like
away.
Tom.
Yeah, like me. Yeah, whoever I meet next,
Well, and
that's
that's
it.
one way
That's
to get,
my
that's one way to
forward.
work through it.
Yeah. You're lucky you had your sister is out here, was out here. That's luck. That's good luck because
It was.
there a lot of times there's also like who's going to live where am I going to go, and you have to go or we're going to live together, which is awful. I can tell you from my experience. Why we get go through this. So you're lucky you had your sister. That was a good thing.
So wait, Devin, what do you feel like, obviously you've been in your, current relationship for 7,
9 years.
9 years. Oh my God. Okay, so Devin, what do you think you've learned in all of this? And how do
Um,
you like, how is your marriage different? How's this one different?
oh, well, I definitely, you know, uh, I think probably the most I learned about myself coming out of my divorce, which took some time, obviously, though, was, what do I really want? Not what does anybody else want for me? What does society think the normal way to go should be? What do I want? What kind of relationship do I want? And it took some time to figure all that out.
What do you want? What did you realize when you go, this is what I want? Describe that
Yeah.
to me.
Like, what do you want? What makes you happy?
I want a partner who I can have fun with, who I can have um open communication with. I can talk about, the hardest, deepest things. I want a stable person that's going to be with me and be a rock when I need him to be, and me vice versa for that person. Someone that's going to get along well with my family as well, because that's an enormous part of my life. Um, but also someone I can trust, and
Yeah,
someone that
honesty.
I'm trust is huge. I've always had trust issues with men, and that was a big thing I had to work on.
From
Um,
your dad, because your dad was he
correct.
cheated himself a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he
makes sense.
was not the best role model in that sense, but and that was sometimes I still, like when I first started dating my husband, he would do something, like not call the said time he would or whatever. And my mind immediately would still go to what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
Like and immediately question. And those were things I had to really, work on. We all have our little triggers and that you constantly have to kind of remind yourself and think about and work on. But I I also wanted I didn't really have a plan to get married again. So I also wanted somebody who really wasn't sure if that wasn't hounded to get married either. You know what I mean? And was wanting to do things on their terms as well.
He
And
has he been married before?
no, he had not been married before. And he had a little, he was in no rush to get married either. I mean, we didn't get married until 8 years after we had
Yeah.
been together.
Oh, that's great. That's good. Well, back in my day, I'm older than you guys, but when a woman had been divorced, it's like, or a woman had a kid, that because of the culture, it's
Yes.
like, whoa, okay, she's tainted.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No. Well, and I also realized too that I did need a level, I wanted a level of passion in my relationship. I had been in relationships where it was too much passion, you
Yeah,
know, and I think, and then I was in one that, was different in that sense. And it was trying to, I think, find a happy medium there between the two. And when I met my husband, it was kind of like, okay, this is a blending of kind of everything. And I wanted somebody who really, understood me and I understood them. And and then I just liked being around because, at the end of the day, no matter how much you love somebody, you really want to enjoy their company. And
what does he do? Does he have a
so he's
job?
Yeah, so he's still a bar manager and he's also a writer. So he's still pursuing that. So we share that
The creative.
creative artistic passion and we understand, the struggles that come with that, not getting jobs, the almost getting jobs, the constant, second guessing yourself sometimes
And
and
do you guys sleep in the same bed every night?
we do. We sleep in the same bed
Yeah. And
and
do you have sex a lot of specific time, maybe every
What's the
Wednesday,
range after 9
whatever?
years?
Yeah,
The range after 9 years, I would say we're still in that kind of like 1 to 2 times a week.
I'd say
that's
that's
good. That's
pretty
plenty.
good.
That's
Yeah.
really good. And if you go for a little while, like a week, and you don't or whatever, you start saying, are you able to
You
say,
guys start to
we need
bicker.
to do this. We need to just do
Well,
this.
we'll say,
And
like, hey, we got to
We
make
need to
some
make
time
up.
for this. And
yeah,
they'll genuinely want to, you know what
yeah,
I mean?
Yeah.
Which is still nice. And I will say, it may not be as often as, like it used to be, but it's still really as great.
that's a
That's
lot. It's plenty.
It's a
awesome.
lot.
It's plenty. Yeah.
And do you guys like, talk about the trust thing, do you like, do you trust him to like go on a guy's weekend, like
100%. Yes.
skiing or fishing or whatever, and vice versa?
Yes, 100%. I honestly, I don't know if I've ever trusted anyone as much as
But
I.
does he go on fishing trips with his buddies?
He goes on fishing trips
Uh,
with his brother, actually.
okay, that's it.
They
Yeah.
grew up fly fishing.
Oh, yeah.
And he loves the mountains and camping and all that. And I don't mind it. It's not my favorite thing. So I mean, I'll go camping with him for a night or two, and then I prefer to kind of be in a lodge or maybe a
Yeah,
cabin or
Yeah.
something.
yeah.
Uh,
Sounds horrible. Sounds horrible.
afterward, but I mean, I love hiking and being outdoors, but I
Yeah.
don't know if I need to sleep in a tent
Right,
Same.
every
right.
night.
Are you
But his
are you
brother and him love that.
are you Jewish?
I'm not. I was
Okay.
raised Catholic, but I'm not
Yeah,
practicing
yeah.
any
Like,
religion.
I'm Jewish, and Jews don't like being intense. And
Well,
Catholic,
maybe I'm
but
part Jewish and I don't know it yet,
yeah,
but
that could very well be. I'll get you 23B. But
Yeah.
do you have girlfriends that you go do your fun stuff with too?
oh, I do. Yes. I mean, sadly, since I moved to San Diego, I haven't made as many
I was gonna
girlfriends.
say, is it hard? I mean,
You know,
not hard, but it's just strange. Yeah, it's just, I guess, when you're, unless it's people you work with, right? I mean,
yeah, there's definitely there's a couple girls I work with that I definitely will go out with, but they live kind of far from me. So, um, but I hang out with my sister-in-law a lot. She lives right down the street. We'll
Oh,
go
that's
out.
handy. And how long ago did you move to San Diego?
It was like a little over 2 years ago.
Okay. Do you feel that that's sort of like moving back to Minnesota a little bit? Give it up just a little
No.
bit?
Uh,
What's that?
are people equally as flaky in San Diego as they are in LA?
not the people I've met so far. I would say not nearly as flaky as Angelinos in my
Mhm,
no.
mhm. And so what do you do during the day?
Well, I work at a private golf club. I work as an events and catering manager there. So lots of big personalities there. And yeah, a lot of golf tournaments, weddings. I was a wedding planner for many years before I moved here. And yeah,
And you
so
go, do you work usually during the day, or do you work sort of a schedule? I assume he works evenings, perhaps.
yeah, that's it. You mentioned that, Tom. Yeah, pretty much since the beginning of our relationship, we have always had opposite schedules. So, like, even when we first started dating, we would really only get to spend about one night a week together, maybe two.
I
And
like that. I like
I
that.
think that's good. You need space.
that was another thing I learned too about myself is I don't need constant attention and I like my time alone a lot, and so does he. And that's another thing I think that's huge in relationship compatibility.
Yeah.
Um, we both value our alone time as much as we value our time together, but I used to be that type of chick that was like, if they're not with me all the time, they don't really love me. Like, nuts about all that. And that's not at all what I am now and what I really, found out about myself. And I think that also comes with feeling really confident and at ease in your relationship,
Yeah, yeah.
and
What
you
what
know,
is what's the thing that about him or habit he has or something he does that bugs the shit out of you? There's got to be one thing that I say every even the great relationships, somebody
yeah.
does one thing, you're like, God damn it, this
Like, does he put his tennis shoes on the kitchen counter?
No, you know what it is? This is so stupid because, I mean, he's the most thoughtful human being I've ever met. I mean, he really is. He shows that in his actions so much on a daily basis, but he's the worst at loading the dishwasher. It's the stupidest thing, but it drives me nuts. It's like you got a plate down here and then a mug next to it and like a pan up
Oh,
top. But I'm just like, what is this? You can
yeah.
fit five things in here by the way that you have constructed this. For someone who's so, OCD,
yeah,
this is absurd.
Yeah.
yeah. And what do you think about they is one of your things that that bugs the shit out of
Oh
you?
gosh. Probably well, he says all the time, how nuts I am, but
I can see that. I can
all the
see
time he's like, oh my God, you're so crazy. Like, because
it.
I'll go on and on about something, and he's just,
Yeah,
'cause I'm a more of a, I can go from 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds, and
yeah.
0 to 60 for him it's a slow burn.
Mhm.
So we're very opposite in that sense. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, just calm down, just,
Mm.
slow down for a second. Cause I'm like, I
Mm.
am.
Give me an example of something you go from 0 to 60. What kind of an issue has come up, or
Oh
what?
gosh, I mean, there's so many. Like Josh one time said, "Oh, we should, I want to write a book, the things that irritate Devon." I mean, it's even this morning. I was getting ready, and there was like somebody out there doing lawn work or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, of course, they're doing lawn work. I got to do this podcast, and it's so loud out there." And he's like, "They're not even going to hear it." And I'm like, "What?" And I was
Yeah,
stupid stuff like that. People that don't use their blinkers. I'll
yeah, I
yell
don't like
at
that either.
that.
I don't. They got to use their blinkers. I'm
Well,
with you.
it's just, to me, it's
Just a
just
heads up.
you're thoughtless. You're not thinking about anybody else.
Right?
You're just moving around,
Yeah,
causing trouble, and it's just takes a flick up or down.
that's
And
right. It's
but
ridiculous. Oh,
yeah,
I'm with you.
Oh
he
my
hates
Those
gosh.
are
driving with me. I will say that. He's terrified to drive with me, hates driving with me, won't let me drive anywhere if we're going together because I'll either get too angry at somebody on the road and then I'll be white knuckling, yelling. And so he handles my I guess my passion.
do you do yoga or any kind of physical exercise that might get rid of some of that
She
mess?
totally does yoga. It
Yeah.
does not help her.
It doesn't. I mean, I guess you say, what would I be like if I didn't do yoga? Maybe
Mhm.
look at it that way.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I do yoga and Pilates. I'd say like I try to be, 3 to 4 times a week, I would say. But
That's very good.
yeah, I have my dad's, my dad's Irish temper and his lack of patience.
Yeah,
If you let-
there's a lot of guys that like that because what you hate is a relationship and suddenly gets so boring. Because there's no fix for that. Boring people, they can be the most beautiful people, the most handsome people, have the best job, but if they're boring, there's a moment in every relationship you're like, oh my God, this person is
Yeah,
so
this person is just a plain white sheet of paper.
you can't fix that. I can't go
Yeah.
on. Why did I get this marriage? She's so boring. But you're
Yeah.
not. And guys, him saying you go teasing you about getting so upset. I think
Likes it.
that he likes it. I think
Yeah.
I'd like that because you're
He's like
alive.
tickled pink by it.
You're engaging people. I'm
Thank
sure he
you,
thinks you're
Mama.
hilarious. If I was him, I'd write all this shit down and do a blog. Start the blog and work up to a book. And it just should become these are the things that piss off my wife. And
Yeah.
then start a list. He should, if he's a writer, start a list, put it all together. And
Love it.
I'll tell him that. I'll tell him that. I'll tell him to double down on that book idea he had about things that irritate Devon because the list is constantly growing.
yeah.
You know,
But I
there's
think a
no-
lot of men would, and people in general, would relate to that and then say, well, this is gets my wife going or my husband going. It'd be a pretty funny. I think you could at least start with a giant list that people are connecting to, and then go from there to the book.
Yeah.
I'll tell him that. That's a good idea. Good
And it's
idea.
a fun as a writer too. That's a fun writer exercise.
Yeah.
You have this thing, and you're and then something comes up, and you go, okay, let me get that in there, and I'm sure it'll piss the shit off of you. You're like, are you putting all my bad stuff, and it's, and then you'll argue about were you really mad about that? Did it really bug you? And that keeps a relationship spicy too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also a big, like we were talking about, what makes it work. And I do think, having a good yin to your yang in a
Oh
relationship
yeah,
is huge. And
A sense of humor.
yeah, a sense of humor, obviously, but I do think, he's mellow. I'm a little bit more
yeah, that's good.
high strung, and it's a good balance.
Yeah, I had at least one of my marriages where we were both psycho. we're both like
Yeah, the two.
up and getting upset about the stuff in the world and fighting people.
Oh,
And then
fighting
eventually
each
it wears you
other.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. I had a relationship like that on and off for about 5 years, and it was just, constant. We were just too much alike in that
Yeah.
sense. There was no one to calm the situation. I remember trying to like kick, the rear view window off his car one night. I was like, kicking that, and then he's coming at me. I mean, it's just, madness.
Super healthy.
If you get a relationship like that and with somebody like you, the thing that pisses you off the most are the things you recognize. the things you do in your he has that you have, and that makes me
100%.
so angry. It's like whenever I see the kids do something that I would have done, I have to think: is this something I would have? Is that why I'm so pissed off about this?
Yeah.
But that's anyway. Well,
Oh my God.
Devon, I can't wait to talk to Sasha about you.
Yeah.
Oh, please tell Sasha I said hi.
Yeah, she was supposed to be here 15 minutes ago, but Sasha is on her own clock. Oh, the traffic.
Can't wait to
West
hear the
Hollywood.
excuse.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
Sasha ran into my sister recently at, I think, the Austin airport.
oh yeah, she does. She's there. What's your sister's name?
Caitlin Reilly. My sister, I was on the phone.
Wait, hold
with-
on, hold on.
Pardon me?
Caitlin Riley's your sister?
Yeah. Do you know her from Boa?
What? Yeah. Is she an actress?
She was not an actress. She's probably one of the
But like
only
super
girls-
blonde, wavy.
Oh my God! And I
beautiful.
know much about you from Sasha, Caitlin's sister. Oh my
Yeah.
God! I feel like we got to start this shit all over again. No, I know Caitlin Riley. Her dad was that your dad too, John Riley?
Pardon me?
Did you have the same dad as Caitlin?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's the legend. He's legend where I'm from. Legend soap opera. Just one of those, just a legend. That was their
Mike
father.
Riley, my dad?
No, Mike Riley's her dad, not John.
Oh, my guy. Oh, John, I thought it was John Riley.
Oh no. I was like, was that a whole life about my dad I didn't know about?
Oh yeah, because it wouldn't seem weird because that other daughter of that dad I'm talking about, Sasha,
Oh.
she's
Oh,
she's
so
a
you know a
lunatic.
different Caitlin Riley.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How crazy is that?
That is, I got to
So
tell my
weird.
sister there's another Caitlin Riley running around.
Yeah,
out
this Caitlin's like a huge social influencer. She does characters like the repressed mob or whatever, and people.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, I'm
that's
gonna have to look
weird.
her up then.
Yeah.
That is so
Oh,
close.
funny.
Because John Riley was the dad, and he was on the soap operas, and
Oh.
then he died.
And he died.
I was almost
Oh my
going
gosh,
to say, I'm sorry
Devon.
about you.
You're the best. Thank you
Devon.
for coming on.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, you guys.
I'm
This
gonna
was
come
so
down
fun.
soon.
Hey, I'm going to be in San Diego doing stand-up. I'll let you know, and you and your
Oh, let
husband
me know. I'd love to
can
come
come
see
be my
you.
guest. Yeah, it'd be
Oh,
great
I'd love
fun.
to come see you.
I will.
So fun.
Thank you.
All
Well, you
right.
guys, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Thank
Who
you
knew
for being
talking
here.
about divorce would be so fun?
Right?
Yeah. I want to learn. I learned from you. I want to. It's selfish. I want to hear stories, how people do it, how they do it right,
You know
what
what?
they don't do, and I will never get married again. But who knows?
Well,
I
never
have-
say never, Tom. And I know
Yeah.
you've been through a lot in this last relationship and all that, but look how much wonderfulness has come out of it and how much you've learned about yourself and what a devoted parent you are now. And like sometimes, we go through these tough experiences like divorce or deaths or whatever. And, sometimes there's a lot of good that comes out of them and that you learn about yourself, and that is a wonderful thing.
Well, it's definitely made me a better dad. And yesterday, Mother's Day, I get hit up, Monica. I was thinking, what mothers do I want to? Because not my mother, that's for sure. But and then a couple friends wrote me, Leah Black and Joel Madison, a couple people out of the blue and said, "You're a great mother. You're a great mother-in-law to me," and it was so touching
It
because
is.
I can't think of a bigger compliment.
Yeah, 100%. And with 3 little ones, I mean,
Mhm.
that is a lot. So, pat yourself on the back. You should be so
Thank you.
proud.
Yeah.
That's
Two little ones, and then Sasha's the third.
And a dog.
Sasha, yeah.
Oh, the dog.
Sasha.
Dog.
And Sharon Stone, your dog.
Is
Yeah.
that your dog's
You know
name?
that lady that what's that? Sharon Stone.
Dog's name
I
is
can't say
Sharon.
yeah, Sharon Stone.
I love
Who's a friend of mine. And, the kids saw a movie. They're watching a movie where she was, I think, trying to murder Arnold. I forget what that movie is called. So they're like, we want to name her
Oh,
Sharon.
that's Total Recall.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't Basic Instinct.
That's true. Yeah,
Oh.
it's a good thing they didn't see that yet. Well, I named
Right.
my dog Dr.
see.
Bateman, so I get the
From
character.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Well, that's cool. This dog has never acted right. This dog at night, a squirrel is outside, starts barking.
All right.
All
love
right.
you guys. Have
All
a
right,
great
Thank you.
thanks
day.
so much, you guys. It was
Bye
a
now.
pleasure.
Take it easy.
You too.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Divorce party. Divorce party. DIVORCEPARTY.